If I could make some adjustments, I would suggest let's put a slightly smaller burden on the young generation and let's introduce these measures more quickly. People will make more contributions to the system and spend a shorter time in retirement. So that's all positive. It does address a shortcoming of our pension system, but it comes very late.
Germany is one of the fastest aging populations in the world. Like many developed economies, it has to make sure that the pension system has a future when ever fewer workers are financing the pensions of ever more, ever longer living retirees. So just how do you future-proof the German pension system? Well, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has outlined plans for the reform of the pension system. Among the measures in the plans are linking the legal pension age to life expectancy. That means Germans could retire at 70 by the end of the century. There will be no early retirement at 63. Pension contributions will be invested in capital markets. Now that's a scheme modelled on Sweden's system. And they'll aim for more contributors and also to reduce the number of civil servants. So here to talk us through pension reform plans is Clemens Fuest, president of the Ifo Economic Research Institute in Munich. Clemens, thanks for taking time to talk to us today.
Pleasure.
So to start, how realistic do you think this pension reform plan is?
Well, pensions are very sensitive and political conflict is normal about pension reform. But I think this is really an opportunity because the Commission has done great work. It was a commission where different political parties were represented together with the experts. And there is now really hope that this will be the basis for a pension reform that finds a majority. So I'm optimistic that something will happen.
You've said on many occasions that the pressure on Germany's pension system is growing. And for every retiree, there are currently about 3 people of working age. By 2040, that number is projected to fall to a little over 2, as the country's large baby boomer generation retires. Do you think this plan goes far enough?
Well, I think the plan does go into the right direction, increasing pension age, starting to save next to the pay-as-you-go pension system. But it doesn't go far enough in the sense that these measures are coming with a delay. So the pension age will increase very slowly. But the baby boomer generation, this big generation, is retiring now. So if we delay these measures, what it means is that the young will bear most of the burden and the baby boomers will get away with relatively small concessions, but concessions have to be made from both sides. So if I could make some adjustments, I would suggest let's put a slightly smaller burden on the young generation and let's introduce these measures more quickly.
Right, and from 2032, Germany's retirement age, which is currently 67, would be linked to life expectancy. Now, under current projections, it would rise roughly half a year per decade. What impact could that have on the German economy?
Well, it will have a positive impact because if people really work longer, and the experience from research on pensions is that they will, because the statutory retirement age does have a strong impact. So there will be more labor supply available. People will make more contributions to the system and spend a shorter time in retirement. So that's all positive. The trouble is it's going very slow. So in 2040, retirement age will have increased by roughly half a year. And that's clearly not enough. As I said, the baby boomer generation will really be retired by then. It would be good if they worked a little longer. The impact would be large because it's such a large generation. So we are losing time here.
You know, one thing which strikes me that we see massive protests in France about pension reform there, but in Germany we don't see. You don't seem to have these great protests. How is pension reform viewed in Germany?
So it is a controversial issue, but people are probably less radical than in France, and they are more realistic. There is a greater understanding. Also, demographic change is stronger in Germany than in France. So the urgency of the reform is better understood. And there is some experience with reforms. In the early 2000s, we already had similar reforms, and they were later dismantled, at least partly, and taken back. And of course, that's also a risk now. Even if the government now introduces bold measures that come into effect later, will future governments really allow these reforms to take effect, or will they again intervene as our governments have, and change, for instance, the formula that calculates the pensions to make higher payments to pensioners. Pensioners are an ever-growing group of voters, and their political influence is rising. So how do we prevent this from undermining pension reform? The situation in France is different. Demographic change is not as radical, and people are more likely, have a stronger tendency to protest rather radically.
Now, one of the measures involves investing pension money in the stock market to help fund future pensions. Is this Swedish model, do you think it'll be enough to fix the problem? Do you think it goes far enough?
It won't fix the problem alone, but it's one step into the right direction. It comes 25 years too late. This has been discussed for a long time. And if we had started the system 25 years ago, it would help us now. So currently, if we introduce it now, it means that the burden for companies and those who work increases, because next to paying into the pay-as-you-go pension system, people now have to pay into this funded system. So contributions will rise and the returns will come a lot later. Again, it does address a shortcoming of our pension system, but it comes very late.
The backdrop to these reforms is, that we have a healthy economy here in Germany. Your Ifo survey showed that German business morale rose in June. Do you think German firms are feeling more confident? Is this a more long-term thing, or is this just a blip?
That's certainly a more short-term thing. It would be nice if it was a more permanent turnaround, but it's too early to claim that. We have to see that in February, the Ifo index declined strongly as a result of the Iran conflict. And now that the conflict is easing, now that there is hope for an agreement, the index rises a little bit, but we are still at a very low level, below the February level before the war. So there's a long way to go before we can say, yes, it's a more permanent recovery.
OK, well, we'll have to leave it there. Clemens Fuest, president of the Ifo Economic Research Institute in Munich. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.